So we're going to have a panel discussion. We're going to bring out some of the questions that are most common that ADAO receives. It's going to be a panel primarily of 4 lawyers: Perry Browder, Jake Strout, Greg Sandifer, and Jessica. So one of the biggest questions I commonly get is, how do I find a lawyer and should I sue? So it's kind of a double question there. So I'm not sure, Perry, I'm going to kind of defer to you and you're the 4 experts, how you want to answer questions, tag team, whatever. We have about 15 minutes and there's 6 really great questions.
Why don't we start with Jessica and just work our way this?
There we go.
Thank you.
Jessica, why should somebody hire a law firm?
For
And
once
how
in my
did
life, I'm going to pass.
There we go. There we go. Is this on?
You have to hire a law firm because I think Dr. Castleman said it best, and I don't know if he was quoting somebody, but lawsuits are more effective than any regulations or OSHA. In America, that's what we are left with in the justice system is civil justice, and that is taking money from the defendants. That is our remedy, and that is really the only remedy we have. And if you're diagnosed with a terminal disease like this that you did not just come down with, and we learned all about that today, we have to seek the only remedies we are able to, and that is through the justice system.
I'm going to speak in first person because it just feels more natural. I've never sued anybody before. I'm really uncomfortable with this. How do I make the decision to file and sue? Jake?
The first thing I tell folks is do your research. There's tons of information out there. It's all at your fingertips, and make a decision. You can talk to multiple people about it. There's excellent people who are on this stage right now. It's a tremendous wealth of information, and everybody is equipped to help you make that decision. And it's important that you're not afraid to do that too, because everyone who files a lawsuit helps the people who come after them. And unfortunately, after all this time, there still are hundreds of people, thousands of people who still have to file lawsuits year after year. And the reason that we do it is beyond just compensation for the people. It's as a deterrent. Punitive damages is the way the civil justice system makes sure corporations are held accountable. It's the only way to make these people listen. It's the only way to make them hurt. And so you have to use the civil justice system to effect change and to help people like Linda continue to push forward their agenda as well.
Thank you, Jake. That's really important. As we continue with some of the common questions, when somebody asks me, why should I file? I'll explain to them, point them to Barry Castleman's book. But if you look at the science and the history, Clarence Burrell's case was life-changing for all of us. Because lawyers fought hard, he didn't make it when it had to go through various courts. But at the end, he won his case, although he was deceased, and the industry then had to change their playbook. Failure to warn is a crime, and I know you guys could get into the legal part of that. But looking at the Burrell case, I'd love to hear, Perry, what do you think? How did the Burrell case change? You've been practicing law for a while, and you have the charts and the knowledge. What do you see?
I think the significance of that case was that someone stepped forward and said, this is wrong. We need to correct the situation. And by working with the doctors, where we found out that information from Dr. Selikoff coming from here, that people were literally being poisoned and not being warned of the hazards, that broke things open for people so that they could get their day in court, that they could have their civil justice and fight for their family. And it would have been simple if it was one case and then everybody said, wow, this is bad, we'll pull these products. It's never been that way. It's been a fight that we've all been ongoing, client after client after client, and it just doesn't seem to end. Like Jessica mentioned about products being sold in other parts of the world, sometimes we got to start here. I mean, Dr. Frank does it. He travels all over the world to bring awareness about how people are getting poisoned. So maybe we don't use it on our ships, but if in India they're breaking up our ships over there because they're poisoning people, this is where it has to start in the civil justice system with lawyers, with people being willing to step up and fight.
And the Burrell case, for anyone that looks at a consumption or import and use chart, you can see 73, that is when the asbestos use and the imports began to decline significantly. So it is momentous in my public policy work, the Burrell case. My husband was exposed to asbestos. I don't really know what the doctor thinks. Do I need to file quickly? It's basically a statute of limitations question. Who'd like to answer that? So being from California, and I'm not a lawyer, how do you guide people? Most of you are now, I think you're all national law firms. So when someone calls, every statute of limitations is different in the states. What's the guideline if somebody lives, say, in California? Maybe I should pick a different state. But what about from the time they're diagnosed, they realize they were made sick by asbestos? What's the lag of time to contact a lawyer?
That the statute of limitations is going to vary by jurisdiction or place where the case ultimately gets filed. But I think to answer the first part of your question is, when I meet a new client, I remind them that there is a statute, and I encourage them to move fast. And certainly your attorney, your case should not get in the way of your medical treatment in any way, and move fast is my ultimate advice. That the statutes do vary.
Thank you. So when Alan was first diagnosed with mesothelioma and they did a thoracoscopy, they asked Alan, did he ever work with asbestos? They never asked, did you do home repairs? Did you work in a shipyard? They never asked those very important work history questions, and that is something ADAO is going to be working on, is educating the public and keeping better records of exposure history, because it's very important as we raise awareness, is individuals who have been exposed, if they do know, is to keep a log. And then for other people who possibly have been exposed and they don't know they have, we have to raise the bar for education, because we're in a very dark, confusing area. I don't know what your firm.
But that's one of the big reasons why you need to hire a lawyer. People don't know where they were exposed. The doctors are talking about occupational history. They don't know where they're exposed. Or Dr. Moline mentioned it. Do I know what my father did? No, we need to talk to the person that did it. It's about preservation of evidence. The person that had the occupational exposure that can tell us what they did for a living, where they were, who they worked with, what they handled. Then we can ask those questions based on our expertise to say, oh, okay, you worked in Cleveland and you did what in high school? Oh, you worked on pizza ovens? Did you ever help take them apart and clean them? Did you know there was asbestos in there? I didn't know there was asbestos in a pizza oven. Well, most lawyers don't. I mean, you got to have that expertise that we can listen to the client, understand what they did, get the occupational history or Social Security records, get that evidence, and then build the case from there.
A great example of that, and you talked about this last year, Perry, the baton twirler case, where there was a young woman and
Their case?
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example.
We never knew that. Yeah, it's so unique.
She was I think it was a high school baton twirler, but she did it for a competition, and they used asbestos in the batons. And we tracked down the defendants that supplied the batons. She was on the front page of papers, and it does go back to the lawyers will trace it down.
You talking about a majorette in color guard?
Yeah.
Chrysolite paper on the burning baton that she was spinning in parades and performances. Who would have thought? Goes back to the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Mother talking to lawyer and says, my husband is so sick, I don't know if we should sue. How much time will it really take from our family time and my husband's? Can I manage a lawsuit? Talk about the time that a family might have to spend on litigation, because I think that's also very confusing for people that don't understand.
I think that's incredibly variable. You know, if you want to do bankruptcies where you get penny on the dollar, it's not a lot of time. If you have other people that can carry the weight, you can minimize the time. But you're trying to understand someone's life history. And so more than the statute of limitations, the reason I say now is because this is an aggressive, terrible disease, and it's only going to get harder. I'm taking the deposition of a client who breaks my heart because I represented her dad. And when she called me and said she had cancer, I really could not believe it. She's been a friend for 3 years, so it's unusual. But I've spent 25 hours in her home learning about her life. And that is a hard decision to make when you're battling for your life and your time becomes incredibly precious. It's not one that everyone makes the same decision. But I will say, in terms of why you hire a law firm, the question I punted on is there is incredible power. When we win a motion or we win an issue, the Shipman case becomes a name that lingers. You open a door that helps the families in the future, and there is this real community building power in a situation where you often feel very vulnerable and very hopeless. And two, this is the weirdest job in the world. I think a lot of people at my age struggle with real connection and friendship because it's easy when you're in college. But we have this job where we meet people and they're vulnerable with their health, and they're vulnerable in usually a legal situation they've never been in. And the bonding that happens because of that is incredible. It is the worst and the best part of my job. I imagine you feel it too, because you are a resource for so many people at the worst time in their life, and then you lose them. But I also have weirdo families all over this country that truly could walk into their home at any time and they love me. And so I would say oddly, the more time you spend, the more opportunity there is to do something powerful and to build a connection in a hard time. But it can be really difficult, especially the first couple of months when we're trying to figure out your history, get everybody in the room that needs to be there in time. And I know when people are trying to get cases, sometimes we minimize the amount that's needed, but you really need to know your history. And I'm sorry, one more thing, and I'll shut. But I also think it isn't just that doctors don't ask the right questions because they're focused on curing the disease, not figuring out why it happened, but they also ask it at the most unlikely time. You are usually finding out that your life is going to change dramatically. And it's like, have you been exposed to asbestos? Oh, okay. How am I going to tell my daughter that I have this? Medical records are notoriously and remarkably limited and often wrong. And I don't think that's anything about the medical profession, but about when and how those questions are asked. And one of the things we get to do is to dig in, because our minds can remember things that you don't remember when you're in this terrible, terrifying moment. So anyway, sorry.
Who else has a comment there?
I echo that. I routinely have situations where I go to depose a client and they talk all about their exposures after we've put in the time to try to identify it. And then you look back at the medical records and it says repeatedly, says he wasn't exposed, says she wasn't exposed. And of course, defendants are going to try to use that in nefarious ways to try to make it seem like the person subsequently made up an exposure. And it's just nonsense. It's all about the timing. And it happens all the time. It's such a great point.
And there are times that you're not going to be able to get a deposition in because the person's so sick. They called in hospice. They got the hospital bed in the living room and the end is near. But if we can at least talk to them a little bit to find out, hey, who did you work with? Where did you work? And some guys will say, oh, they're all dead. Well, you got a picture of your old job, and you pull out it's in the den. You bring up, oh yeah, Joe's still alive, and so-and-so's still alive. But if we can get that before the person passes, even if you can't get a deposition, now we have what we call occurrence witnesses, people that work with that person that can do that heavy lifting for the family, can say while he was there or while she was there, and we get supervisors that'll say what the lady did or the man did on the job site. So it's really important to move as fast as possible, but yet we're all accommodating. We understand medical treatment comes first. Mm-hmm. Counseling from the priest comes first. We work around all of that. And if that means being there on a Saturday, in the morning and coming back, Monday in the morning, then the very next, we'll do it. We'll do what we need to help them out.
So when Alan first got sick, I was searching for medical treatment. I didn't know where to go. It was like the new disease you couldn't spell. And I found the best resources were coming from the law firm. So I think that is a byproduct of seeking legal counsel, because oftentimes, like the four of you represent four law firms, but you have the best resources. You know who are the experts in town. And I think that guidance is truly invaluable. One last question. So hypothetically, I was exposed to asbestos. I'm not sick, thank God. But what do I need to know between now and the next 15 years? What's your best advice? Because that is a common question. We raise awareness, that increases apprehension, fear, and terror. And there's nothing legally that you can do. In Brazil, I believe they do psychological damages. I don't know if that's exactly what the term, Barry, but there's nothing in the U.S. to my knowledge. So if someone's been exposed, what do you want to tell them? What's the best advice? That's a big question.
I try to, first and foremost, reassure them that it is a rare diagnosis and not to spend a lot of time stressing, but I personally stress about my medical hypochondriacness. So I tell them to go to the doctor and let them know that they are nervous and that they have a history of asbestos exposure, and not to be conservative in their description of symptoms and their fear and anxiety, and to get the peace of mind that I would want. And don't be afraid to be a little dramatic, I guess.
I think it's good advice.
It's just what the doctors have been saying all day today too. The earlier you spot it, the better chance you have. So you got to stay on top of it, and you got to continue to see your doctor and tell them about it. Don't hide from it. It is what it is.
And if you're in your union, some unions have medical monitoring, that they know that the group has been exposed, and they have the medical monitoring available. As Michael Bresch mentioned, if there's a program out there, you may not be sick, but enroll. If you were a part of the exposure group, call up an attorney like him for 9/11. Just enroll in it. You just never know. I'm not going to get cancer. You just never know. And there are a lot of things out there to monitor, like let your doctor know, check to see if there's medical monitoring through your union, and check to see if there's any compensation programs that you might be eligible to enroll in if you get sick.
And if you work for a corporation, request your medical records, like the Tunnel Works, remember that? Their average lung age, I think, was 117 years old, because they had been so horribly exposed under the Capitol. Jessica, did you have something on that one?
Just if you're in a situation where you might still be around asbestos, it's a dose response disease, make sure you're not. I have a list, if anybody wants it, of all makeups that are talc-free. If you're doing floor tile removals in a new house, be smart. That's the only other thing I would add. I actually thought what you said was beautifully said.
Well, we talked about a lot, and I'm grateful that we can talk about legal challenges and the law in a very honest way, because it helps me personally when I'm asked questions, and it's very intense. We've raised awareness. Now people are worried, and we want to make sure we give the right information.